Yeah, my story and how I became involved in this issue is rather complex and goes back over 40 years. My uncle was the senior project engineer that designed the lunar module, which was the thing that landed on the moon with Neil Armstrong in it in 1969. And I was a young boy when he was working on that and had an interest in space and all of that because of family. But also around that time, when I was about 8 or 9, I saw a beautiful, seamless disc, round-shaped craft in daylight in the afternoon with some boys in the neighborhood where I grew up in North Carolina, in Charlotte. And there was a Douglas missile plant there at the time, and I think that perhaps they were investigating this missile plant. But we saw it and then it just vanished. It didn't float away, but it was hovering silently. And I became extremely interested that I had seen something from another world. And so I began to look into this matter a great deal. And as time went on, I really got involved very heavily and had a number of experiences with these ET spacecraft and the beings on board them over when I was a young man, late teenager. But in 1990, started an organization known as the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, which is CSETI for short, C-S-E-T-I. And it's a nonprofit, and its main prime purpose is to create groups of people to go out to areas like you have in Norway, where these objects have been seen, and not just observe them, but to interact, to signal to them, and to interact with the intelligence behind the spacecraft. So that we began to do in 1990. And of course, we immediately began to have amazing successes. We went down to near Opan, Belgium, near the German border. We had a massive triangular craft that came right over us, vibrating with the tones we were sending up. We went to Florida, near Pensacola, and did an experiment on the beach there by the Gulf of Mexico, and had 4 of these objects appear, signaling to us with lights back and forth for about 20 minutes. It was on the front page of the paper the next day, and it was witnessed by 40 or 50 people, 2 of whom were Air Force pilots. And we then went to Mexico near the volcano Popo, the large volcano, and we had an incredible encounter with a massive ship that was about 800 feet on each side of a triangle, almost 3 football fields on each side, and it came over and hovered over us and turned and was signaling with us while we were contacting the pilot on board. And these began to happen more and more. And so by 1993, our group concluded that not only was it possible for humans to make peaceful diplomatic contact with these visitors, but that it was very important that the world know this. So we started a project that's known as the Disclosure Project, which people can see at disclosureproject.org, where we began to identify military and corporate and CIA intelligence officers who had personal knowledge of the classified operations dealing with this subject, and to get them to come forward with our information to disclose this publicly. And that Disclosure Project really began in 1993. And around that time, of course, I was asked to brief President Clinton's team and his first CIA director, R. James Woolsey. So between 1993 and the year 2000, we spent a great deal of time not only putting together the evidence and the proof, which is available at disclosureproject.org, but meeting with members of the Senate Intelligence Committee in the United States, meeting with former ministers of defense in Great Britain, people who were in the White House staff, and of course very high officials at the Pentagon, including the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, to name a few. And also at this time, the UN Secretary General Boutros Ghali, his family were very interested in this, and his wife Leah Ghali became very interested, and we met with her and gave briefing materials for them. So it was a public education effort, because what we felt was necessary was that the secrecy should be ended and this information disclosed so that humanity, not just one country in America, but all of humanity could make peaceful contact with these civilizations visiting us, but also would lay the foundation for these new technologies, the energy and propulsion systems that are behind these UFOs that are so mysterious. How are they flying? Well, this is understood, but they are in classified projects. So that was another objective, was to get the technologies out to the public so we could have a civilization that would get freed from the use of oil and the destruction of the environment.